You have stood in front of a mirror before. Maybe you stared at your own hair. Maybe you compared it to your siblings. Same parents, same house, same dinner table for years. And yet one of you is blonde, one of you is brown. That never quite made sense to you. Maybe it happened at a family reunion instead. A cousin walked in with bright red hair. Nobody else in the room had it. Everyone joked about the mailman. Nobody actually knew the real answer. Maybe it happened during school picture day. You stood in a line of classmates. Every single head was a different shade. Black, brown, blonde, red, all in one row. Nobody ever explained why that happens. It just felt like random luck, forever. You probably assumed hair color is simple. Two parents mix their traits. Like paint blending on a palette. That explanation feels obvious. It is also almost completely wrong. What is happening inside your scalp is stranger than paint. It involves ancient migrations. It involves a tiny molecular switch. It involves one mutation that evolved twice, on opposite sides of the planet. Stay with me. By the end, family photos will look different to you. Let's start with the assumption most people carry. You probably think hair color works like paint. Dark plus light equals something in between. If that were true, families would look predictable. Every child would land between their parents. But that is not what happens. Red-headed kids appear with no red hair nearby. Blonde toddlers grow into brunette adults. Siblings from one home look like strangers. Paint blending cannot explain any of that. Something else is running this show. Have you ever felt like the odd one out in family photos? Drop a comment below. Tell me your family's strangest hair color story. I read every single one. Some of them explain exactly what you are about to learn. Here is what is actually happening. Your hair color comes from a pigment. That pigment is called melanin. Melanin is not one substance. It is two. The first type is eumelanin. Eumelanin creates black and brown shades. The second type is pheomelanin. Pheomelanin creates red and yellow shades. Every strand on your head holds a ratio of these two pigments. Blonde hair simply has very little of either. Black hair is packed with eumelanin. Red hair leans hard toward pheomelanin. Your color is a chemical recipe. It is not a blend of paint. Brown hair sits somewhere in the middle. It carries moderate amounts of both pigments. That middle ground is why brown is so common. It is the easiest recipe for your body to land on. Think of these two pigments like ingredients in a kitchen. More of one, less of the other, and the dish changes completely. Your body is not blending your parents' finished dishes together. It is following its own private recipe card instead. That card just happens to be written in DNA. And that recipe can shift over your lifetime too. It is part of why hair eventually turns gray. Pigment-producing cells slow down with age. They stop feeding color into new hair. The strand grows in without any pigment. That is gray hair, in its simplest form. Your own hair has probably already started that shift. Maybe somewhere you have not noticed yet. Globally, black hair is by far the most common shade. It shows up across most of the world's population. Brown comes next, especially outside northern latitudes. Blonde and red sit at the far edges. They are genuinely rare mutations, not defaults. That rarity is part of why they feel so noticeable. Your brain is wired to register anything statistically unusual. So who decides the recipe in the first place? That job belongs to a gene. Scientists call it MC1R. Think of MC1R as a switch. It sits on your pigment cells. When the switch is fully on, your body leans toward eumelanin. Your hair goes dark. When the switch is damaged, your body defaults to pheomelanin. Your hair leans red or golden. One gene, working like a dial, quietly shaping a huge piece of how you look. Other genes get involved too. One called OCA2 helps shape eye color. Another called KITLG plays a role in blonde hair. Eye color has its own strange twist too. Researchers at the University of Copenhagen studied blue eyes closely. They found something almost every blue-eyed person shares: a single ancient mutation near the OCA2 gene. It likely appeared in one person, long ago. Every blue-eyed human today may descend from them. Brown eyes, by comparison, come from many separate mutations. Blue eyes may trace back to just one. But MC1R remains the main character in this particular story. It is the closest thing your body has to a paint mixer. Except this one is coded in DNA, not pigment. This single detail breaks the paint theory completely. A switch is not something you blend. A switch is something you inherit. Sometimes in a form your parents never used themselves. That is why red hair can vanish for generations. Then it suddenly reappears at a wedding. Both parents can carry a weakened MC1R copy. Neither parent shows red hair at all. Their child can inherit both weakened copies together. Suddenly, there is a redhead in the family. Nobody knows where it came from. It came from two hidden switches. Two switches meeting for the first time. Even identical twins prove how strict this system is. They share the exact same MC1R copies. That is why their hair almost always matches exactly. Genetics, not luck, is running that particular show. Now the story gets much bigger than one gene. To understand your hair, go back further. Go back roughly 100,000 years. Long before hair color was even a question anyone could ask. Every human traces back to Africa. Under a punishing equatorial sun, pigmentation mattered enormously. Dark hair and dark skin were not cosmetic. They were survival equipment, plain and simple. High eumelanin protected skin from intense radiation. Any mutation that weakened that protection was risky. Evolution quietly filtered those mutations out. For an enormous stretch of history, nearly everyone had dark hair. There was a clear biological reason for that uniformity. Then humans started moving. Groups pushed north into Europe and Asia. They entered regions with much weaker sunlight. The dark pigmentation from Africa became less necessary. In some cases, it became actively unhelpful. Weak sunlight makes vitamin D harder to produce. Your body needs vitamin D to build strong bones. Without enough of it, bones can weaken over time. A condition called rickets can develop in children. Rickets was a real danger in low sun regions. Lighter pigmentation lets more limited sunlight through. Think of it like a window with thinner curtains. More light gets through to where your body needs it. In low sun regions, evolution stopped punishing lighter traits so harshly. Mutations once filtered out were suddenly allowed to survive. This next part should genuinely surprise you. If you have made it this far, stick around. The twist ahead is why this topic keeps trending every year. You deserve the real explanation, not another shallow scroll past version. Redheads show this filtering process clearly. Roughly 1 to 2% of people carry natural red hair worldwide. It is almost always a recessive trait. You generally need 2 weakened MC1R copies. 1 copy from each parent, at minimum. Scientists have identified several specific mutations responsible. Researchers using huge genetic databases mapped their strength. Some variants push hair strongly toward red, others push more weakly, but still measurably. Together, these variants explain the range. Deep auburn sits on one end, pale strawberry blonde sits on the other. Red hair usually comes with pale skin too. That pairing is not a coincidence at all. The same weakened MC1R switch affects both traits together. Pale skin burns faster under strong sunlight. It also produces less natural protection from radiation. That is one reason redheads sunburn so easily. One gene, quietly shaping 2 visible traits at once. Modern research shows hair color is even more complex than MC1R alone. Genome-wide studies have found dozens of contributing genes. Most play a smaller role than MC1R, but together they explain fine differences between shades. Two brunettes can carry very different genetic recipes underneath. Here is a detail that stops people mid-scroll. Modern humans are not the only species with this mutation. Scientists pulled ancient DNA from Neanderthal remains. They found a separate variant of MC1R, one never seen in modern humans at all. That variant likely gave some Neanderthals lighter hair too. It happened entirely independent of our own lineage. Two branches of humanity, separated by hundreds of thousands of years. Both stumbled onto red hair on their own. Evolution apparently likes writing this story twice. Neither branch copied the other one. Neither branch even knew the other existed. They just landed on the same solution separately, without ever meeting. Think about how strange that actually is. Two completely separate populations, far apart in time, both facing similar sunlight, similar pressures, similar biology. Both quietly arrived at the same colored answer. It suggests this particular mutation was always waiting for the right conditions to let it survive. Given the chance, biology seems to find it twice. Blonde hair has its own separate origin story. It happened surprisingly recently, in evolutionary terms. Genetic dating studies point to roughly 11,000 years ago. That lines up with the end of the last ice age. One explanation is simple environmental pressure. The same vitamin D story from before. But there is a second theory too. A stranger one, sitting right alongside it. Anthropologist Peter Frost proposed something unexpected. His research was published through the University of St. Andrews. During that period, hunting was dangerous work. Many young men died on long hunts. Some northern populations ended up with far more women than men. Frost argued this created intense competition among women for fewer male partners. Under that pressure, rare traits may have stood out. Unusual hair and eye colors became eye-catching. They may have become more attractive simply for being rare. Blonde hair may have spread, partly because it was rare. Not despite that rarity, but partly because of it. Being different, in that window of history, may have been an advantage. Think of it like a crowded room today. One person wears a color nobody else chose. Your eyes land on them almost instantly. Frost believes something similar happened across entire generations. Rare shades kept getting chosen, generation after generation. Slowly, an entire region ended up mostly light-haired. If this is rewriting what you thought about your hair, hit like. It genuinely helps this reach more people asking the same question. Now for the twist. The part almost nobody sees coming. The reason this topic is bigger than any one continent's family tree. Most people, picturing natural blonde hair, picture Northern Europe immediately. Scandinavian ancestry, pale skin, light eyes, the whole familiar package. That assumption feels safe. It is also missing something enormous. On the other side of the planet, something strange shows up. Among the Melanesian people of the Solomon Islands, a striking number of children are born with naturally blonde hair. These are some of the most darkly pigmented people on Earth. Under the paint blending theory, this should be impossible. Under a single shared origin theory, it should be impossible too. Yet there it is. Blonde hair sitting directly on deeply melanin-rich skin. Generation after generation, without interruption, with zero European ancestry involved anywhere in the picture. Researchers went looking for a shared genetic thread, a link connecting these islanders to Northern European blondes. They found nothing of the kind. Instead, they found a completely different gene. Scientists call it TYRP1. The study identifying it was published in the journal Science. It carries its own unique mutation, one never linked to European hair color at all. Two populations, thousands of miles apart. Thousands of years apart too, in most cases. They arrived at strikingly similar blonde hair, through two entirely separate genetic paths. This is not one shared story passed down. It is convergent evolution. Nature solved the same visual puzzle twice. twice, on opposite sides of the world. Neither side ever knew the other existed. Picture two separate inventors, on separate continents. Neither one has ever met the other. Both independently designed the exact same tool. That is essentially what happened inside these genomes. Different populations, different pressures, different genetic starting points. Somehow both arrived at the same golden shade. It is one of the clearest examples biology offers. Proof that evolution does not follow one single script. Sit with that for a second. It quietly rewrites your starting assumption. Hair color was never one single story, handed down along one tidy family tree. It is closer to a set of independent switches, scattered across very different populations, sometimes triggered by sun exposure, sometimes triggered by mating pressure, sometimes triggered by pure genetic chance, occasionally landing on the exact same visual outcome, without ever sharing the same underlying cause. That reframes something deeply personal too. Your hair color is not proof of one tidy category. It is closer to a fingerprint left by thousands of years of ancestors who survived specific skies and specific latitudes, ancestors shaped by mating pressures you will never fully know. Every strand on your head is a small historical record, written in melanin instead of ink. It cannot tell you a single name. It cannot tell you a single date. But it can tell you where your ancestors likely stood, under strong sun or under weak, distant light. That is a strange kind of inheritance to carry. Quiet, invisible, sitting on top of your head daily. Think about that the next time you catch your reflection. You see your own hair color every single day. You probably stopped actually noticing it years ago. That color is not decoration. It is not random either. It is the visible edge of a chemical switch. A switch your ancestors carried through ice ages, through migrations, through mating pools you will never meet. This also explains something that confuses people online constantly. The idea that hair color should map onto nationality. Genetics rarely respects the tidy categories humans draw on maps. A single ancestor from centuries back can matter enormously. They can quietly plant a recessive gene forward. That gene can resurface generations later, unannounced. It can appear in someone who looks nothing alike. Your family tree is full of switches waiting their turn. Some already flipped. Some still sitting dormant, waiting for the right combination to finally appear. Maybe in a child not yet born. You might carry a hidden switch right now, one you have never seen expressed in yourself. It could show up in a future grandchild instead. A whole new hair color, sitting quietly for generations, waiting for the exact right pairing to appear. If this shifted how you think about your own hair, subscribe. Subscribe for more breakdowns just like this one. Being human is stranger than most classrooms ever taught you. So go back to that mirror from the beginning. Look at your own hair again. Whatever shade it happens to be. It is not a blend of your parents, not two colors of paint mixed in a jar. It is a switch, flipped one particular way, shaped by sunlight your ancestors stood under, long before you existed at all. Somewhere behind that color sits a survival story, written slowly across thousands of years, ice ages, migrations, mutations with nowhere else to hide, except your own scalp, right now. You were never the odd one out at that dinner table. You were simply carrying a different chapter, a chapter of the exact same very old story. Every color at that table came from somewhere. Somewhere real, somewhere ancient, somewhere worth understanding. The next time someone asks about your hair, you will know. It was never random. It was never simple paint. It was survival, chance, and time, quietly written on your head.